Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar on sales leadership beyond just management. I am thrilled to have each and every one of you join us today as we delve into the dynamic world of sales leadership and discover how to excel in this ever evolving landscape. Sales leadership is not just about closing deals, it's about inspiring and guiding your team towards success. In today's competitive business environment, a strong sales leader is essential for driving growth, fostering innovation, and maintaining a motivated team. But, before we jump into our webinar, can we have 2 minutes to have a brief look at two of our biggest strengths, HCRM and 12 minutes? HCRM is a powerful customer relationship management solution that helps you optimize and streamline your interaction with the customer, enhance customer satisfaction, and ultimately drive revenue growth. Known for its cutting-edge technology and user-friendly CRM software, HCRM has established itself as a leader in the industry with innovative features and an intuitive interface. HCRM empowers businesses to effectively manage and nurture their customer relationships. 12 Grids is an exceptional web design agency that specializes in UX, website, SEO, and content marketing services to deliver guaranteed results for your brand. With a keen focus on delivering seamless user experience, 12 Grids combines the power of stunning visuals with optimized functionality. Using effective search engine optimization, they ensure that their website not only look impressive, but also provide a user-friendly experience and drive organic traffic. So back to our webinar. The guest of honor for today's webinar is Ms. Neetu Bansal. Ms. Neetu Bansal is an international speaker, author, business mentor, and business and leadership coach for SME and startup businesses. She specializes in working with women entrepreneurs, family businesses, and tech startups. An award-winning sales speaker, author, business mentor who has come across startups, early stages, and growth phases by being their soundboard and their confidant. Welcome, Neetu ji. I hope after this webinar, many of us excel as a leader in their respective fields. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kadamri. That was a wonderful introduction. I absolutely loved your energy. And thank you for setting that bar for me to maintain that level of energy that you have shared. So I'm loving this. Thank you so much. And thank you again, HCRM, for giving me this opportunity to again share some of my views and some of my experiences around sales. And this time, today, we're going to be talking about sales leadership. So let's get started. Let me share my screen. Just give me a moment. Okay. So let's talk about sales leadership today. Now, quite often, we use the words sales leader and sales manager interchangeably. The truth is that there is an entire unexplored universe of leadership out there that is quite often completely missed out by the managers. And today, what we're going to do is take a small tour through this unexplored space of sales leadership. Now, when I talk about sales leadership, there are two levels at which an organization can establish sales leadership. One is at an organizational level, and one is at the team level. Now, what do I mean by the organizational level sales leadership? In fact, Kadambari has already spoken a lot about the team level one, but there is one more, which is the organization level. What happens here is when a business achieves a position of leadership within a particular industry or market, primarily because of its powerful sales function, it achieves sales leadership. And when it does, they often surpass their competitors in terms of the sales volume, the customer base, and also the market reach. Quite often, we also see that these companies have a significant share of the market and they wield considerable influence over the market dynamics also. So can you give me an example of some of these, of some organizations in India, let's talk about India for now, who have actually achieved this level of sales leadership? You can put it on chat, or you can unmute yourself and give me those examples of organizations whom you believe have achieved market dominance because of their powerful sales function.
ICICI Bank.
ICICI Bank, yes. And they entered the market quite late compared to the other international banks, right? And they were able to make a huge dent in the market and take a big market share of this. Yes, I agree with you, Samir. What are the other organizations? Maybe from your domains. We have so many other people. Come on. No? One of the oldest example I always get is Xerox. I always get Xerox. I always get P&G, Unilever. Some of these organizations who have such a huge market reach, who have actually with their sales function itself, they have captured a market in spite of the competition in which being high across, or the challenges being high in the industry, right? So that's about the organizational level. Then what happens at the team level? At the team level, the focus is on the sales leader who leads the sales team within an organization to achieve your sales objectives, your business targets, or the business revenues of the organization. So if you see sales at the team level, sales leadership is about focusing on the individual sales members. And we're focusing on guiding them, motivating them, empowering those sales professionals so that they are able to do their best and also achieve for the organizations. So here, predominantly at the team level, it is the sales leader who plays a very crucial role to ensure that the sales goals, sales strategies, and performances and cultures are established for the organization. Now, for an organization to succeed, we need both, right? However, today we're going to be focusing more at the team level of sales leadership and the role that a sales leader can play to make this happen. Okay, so let's dive in. Before we do that, let's also again make one more comparison between the organization level and the team level sales leadership. When we talk about organization level sales leadership, what are the things that the company actually focuses on? So if you see here, we're looking at an organization will try to establish large market share. They will bring in effective sales strategies. They, of course, have to focus on customers, bring in innovations, being the first movers, have a competitive pricing. An example of that is our Reliance, right? They have captured the market. They've established themselves as leaders by using innovation and competitive pricing. Of course, with strategic partnerships, all our automobile industries brands that are coming in, they are able to establish their sales leadership mainly through strategic partners for both sales and delivery. Of course, brand strength. And today's world, the brand strength has also gone digital. So there are so many businesses who have established their sales leadership by their digital brands only. They don't even have a physical presence. So that's always changing. There's so much of change, innovation happening even in each of these segments. Then, of course, we're looking at an ongoing improvement of every aspect of sales and organization structure, of the focus on not just on customer acquisition, but focus on customer retention. And then using market intelligence again to bring to be more innovative, to beat the competition, to get a larger market share, and of course, ultimately to use scale and resources to capture a larger market, right? This is happening at the organization level. Let's see what's happening at the team level. If you see, this list is very different from what's happening at the organization level. At the team level, the sales leader is focusing on clear sales objectives. He or she is focusing on building a team that is through coaching, development, motivating and engaging the team. There is a focus on the operational side of it, which is sales process optimization. We're looking at communication skills, right? We're also looking at decision making, which is based on data. Then, of course, there is the challenges of conflict resolution, and not just internal but also external. The communication challenges between teams and between the team and its customers, between the team and its partners, alliances, etc. Right? Of course, collaborating within other departments and risk management. Now, if you see both of these, though ultimately are looking at sales leadership, the kind of focus items is completely different. And like I mentioned earlier, for an organization to achieve sales leadership, you need both of them. And here again, if you see within the organization level, there are two items, which is the sales strategy and the team excellence, which is actually dependent on the other team level. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that if we focus on the sales leadership internally while focusing on the team, we will achieve two major components of the organization level sales leadership. So there are two items which are under our control, but others may not be. These two are under our control because we are looking internally, inward into our organization. So let's look at the team level sales leadership a lot more in detail today. Now, for a successful sales leader, they invariably today have to play two roles, dual role. One, they're focusing on the sales process, where they are working with the salespeople to support them in the entire sales process. These sales leaders, they're the one who are keeping current on the status of all the sales opportunities, but at the same time, they are offering support and guidance to the sales teams. The main thing over here for a sales leader is while they are offering this support, they are not trying not to take over the control of the sales process. The sales process is still owned by the sales people. This is a clearly big difference between a sales manager and a sales process. And we're going to talk more about that a little later. So while at one level, we have the sales process, on the other level, we have the sales culture. The sales leader is now focusing on the individuals and making sure that he or she is providing the right focus and direction. In fact, when I'm working with an organization, especially with sales heads of organizations, I've noticed one thing. A lot of organizations have actually been able to put in the sales processes. They have defined it, they have documented it, they have experimented and improvised and made it an effective sales process. But the challenge comes when if you have a very good sales process, but if your sales team is not following this process, not adhering to those processes. A typical example is when you bring in a great tool, a CRM tool like Edge CRM. It has so many features and so much that it can help the organizations in their sales strategies. But if your sales team is not inputting those data, if they don't see the benefit out of it, right? The processes by itself cannot succeed. You need to build in that sales culture. And that sales culture one model that can actually build that sales culture is a coaching model. But the coaching model is focusing on the individual and their challenges, their strengths, their areas of improvement. And this is done through guiding, motivating, and advising rather than taking over and directing. So if you see the sales leader's role, sales process, systems and organizations, and I've seen many, many organizations who were quite mature on the left side of it, which is on the sales process, but it's the sales culture, which for me is always missing. And that's where the sales leader makes his or her mark. So before we move forward, I'm again going to ask all of you, what do you think is the difference between a sales manager and a sales leader? Any thoughts around this? Guys, I would love to have your participation.
Sales manager is one who is a taskmaster, getting things done.
Mm-hmm.
And a sales leader is someone who's guiding you towards that process and taking you forward, guiding you and handholding you towards the sales process.
Absolutely, right? So the sales manager is the one who's responsible to plan, direct, and control all the activities of the sales people. Whereas the sales leader is the one who's guiding, motivating, helping you create that vision and achieve that vision for you, right? So without the second level of sales leaders, what happens is if your team has only sales managers and no sales leaders, what happens to your organization? Your sales team does a good job. I'm not saying that they don't do a good job. If you have good sales guys, they will do a good job, but they will still, you will see that there is a lack of accountability, there is a lack of vision, there's a lack of self drivenness, and all of that is something which is being fulfilled by a sales leader. The other thing also which happens is there is a high attrition with your sales teams. This is another symptom for you to understand that your sales heads are playing the role of sales managers and not sales leaders.
There's a old saying that says, "You people leave managers, not companies." That's
Correct.
where this thing comes out.
Absolutely, right? And as much as I'm talking about sales today, this applies to every function. While today we're focusing on sales, but this applies to every function. And I would love all of you all to go back and do this self introspection for your organization to understand that whether you have managers in your organizations and leaders. One of my very old favorite quote I remember was that a manager needs people to manage. A leader does not need people to lead. They would just lead. Okay. And there is another way for you to look at it also. It's a very nice sentence that I picked up. Is when your team members say this, right? When I talk to managers, I get the feeling that they are important. Like, oh wow, my manager is great, my manager knows everything, my manager is so experienced. But the moment your team starts telling that, whenever I speak to my leader or my boss or my head of department, I come away feeling that I'm doing something right. I have done something right. I can do something better. I am important. I have the capability. I have the strength. So, in fact, as a sales and a business coach, for me, it is when my clients, the business, typically I work with the entrepreneurs and the business owners and the leadership team. When they, after a meeting, when they go back and feel that, yes, we have solved the problem, we have understood this, that's when I feel successful. But when they tell me that, Neetu, what you have shared was really very important. We are really happy with you. We've got so much from you today. It doesn't, I feel at that time I have failed my coaching session on that day. It always has to be when my customers, when my clients go with the feeling that they have done something, they have achieved something, it's when I succeed as a sales or a business coach. The same thing applies here also. So since we're talking so much about the coaching model, I thought I will also share with you a very interesting model called a 60-second sales coaching model. It was designed by Sandler. There's a Sandler group, and they also have a very interesting book called The 49 Rules of Sales Leaders. I would recommend I think it's an earlier 2017 books, but a lot of the things that they say is so applicable. And it kind of helps us transform ourselves from a sales manager into a sales leader. So here they have a model called the BAT triangle. Okay. And this BAT triangle talks about the three elements of success. Now, when it comes to sales, there are various ways in which we can define success, right? If you've achieved your targets, if you won over a competition account, If your if your profitability has increased a lot, if your conversion rates have improved, if your client is giving you a high recommendation, these are all wins, these are all successes. Okay. But all of these have three things in common, and these are the three elements that the BAT tracker talks about. What is a BAT stands for? First one is behavior. Behavior is things that you do again and again and again. It's like muscle memory. It's like a habit. What a person actually does. So what you keep doing it so often that it becomes muscle memory, that you don't have to think about it, and you do it invariably in every aspect of your sales cycle. The next one is attitude. Attitude, we're looking as what are their mindset, what is their outlook, what are their belief about their organization, about themselves, about their clients, about their product, about their service. And the third one is the technique, about what should you say, what should I not say, when should I say it, how should I say it. That's all the technique. Now, again, if you look at this, PAT, uh, which one do you think is the most important one amongst these three? Behavior, attitude, or technique? Any thoughts around that?
Behavior.
Sameer ji, aap to 100 pe 100 today, yeah? What's it? You're batting full. Yes, you're right. It is behavior which is most important, right? But ironically, if you see, most of our sales training, sales advice is always aimed at which one?
Technique.
Technique. You're so right, right? All our sales training is focused on building skills. The sales managers are advising people, their team members, on how to improve their selling skills, how to improve their lead generation skills, how to improve their negotiation skills, communication skills, etc. It's the behavior and the attitude which is not given so much of importance. And I like Samirji said that it is actually behavior which is most important. It's a very nice analogy. Most of us don't like to go to the gym. I hate going to the gym and I don't like working out, but I need to work out. I need for health reasons. So now what happens is if I go to the gym continuously and if I exercise, even if my technique is not perfect initially, but I continue going, I form a behavior, I make sure that I go every day and I work out. Okay, what will happen is I will definitely get into a better shape. And once I get into a better shape, once I start seeing the transformation or the change in my body, I will start liking to go to the gym. And because I start liking going to the gym, that is my attitude has changed, right? I start liking going to the gym. And once that happens, my technique will also improve. So therefore, what I mean by this is that if you get the right behavior, if you focus on getting the right behavior, all the other results will follow. Attitude and technique will follow. However, without behavior, you will not be able to get that amount of success. And we have enough of examples where we have, as sales heads or as business owners, we have empowered our sales team with the right training programs, okay, with the right technology tools, the right platforms, with the right ecosystem, the great products, marketing collaterals, and everything. But if their own outlook or if their own personal belief is missing, okay, but they have the behavior. So what can you do? You can ensure that you focus on the behavior. You tell them a set of things to do this on an ongoing basis and you will see the result. And what happens is once that behavior becomes a constant for them, their attitude will change. Okay, so this is a very good model to ensure that when you're having when you're discussing improvements for your sales function, whether it is for the system or the individual, look at, are you addressing it from all the three things: behavior, technique, and attitude. Let me give you another example. Sorry, before we jump there. By the way, like I told you, you can pick up the book also. And like I said, behavior is the biggest piece. So ultimately, what happens is if we are able to align behavior, attitude, and technique, all of them, not just the technique, but the behavior, attitude, and technique, that's when you will be able to have success, a sustainable success at both at the organization level and at the team level. And why do I'm calling it sustainable is mainly because the moment we address behavior and attitude, also along with technique, we empower the sales teams. They themselves become accountable. And that's one big major challenge I've again seen, accountability. Accountability is missing. A lot of business leaders struggle with this, where their sales teams are, the accountability is not there, right? And that is only because of the behavior and the attitude. And that's the only way that you can improve it. You cannot address accountability or motivation through technique. It has to be done through behavior and attitude. So now let me give you an example. Let me talk about how the BAT coaching model can be applied through the sales in the sales process. And here I'm going to take the example of a sales funnel, right? Now, again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of organizations have been quite successful in defining their entire sales funnel. They document what happens at each stage. They have figured out what the salespeople should be doing at each stage. They figured out who's going to be accountable. They figured out what kind of support that the sales team need at each stage to be successful. Okay, but without the BAT model, this sales process, the sales funnel may not always be successful on its own. So let's see what exactly do I mean by it. Now let's talk about, let's say, just at the top of the funnel, the lead generation. Okay, the techniques typically are a client mapping, doing a lot of research, and of course, how to manage the meetings with the customers. But what is the attitude that we need to coach our sales members to have, right? That they have to be persistent. They need to be optimistic, because this is the stage where, especially when it's B2B sales or a longer sales cycle, where there's a lot of meetings but no leads coming out, right? So the focus has to be on developing that persistence and being optimistic. But what is the behavior that you want your salespeople to have at this stage? One, for example, and these are all samples. It's not a rigid science, right? For your organization, for your sales product, it will change. But what's the behavior that we would, for example, what we would want our sales people to have at the lead generation stage? One could be references. Ask for references, even if you're going to get no, it's okay. And why did I talk about references right on the lead gen stage? It's very interesting that most of us ask for references only after we have closed the sales. But then it's a funnel. The top of the funnel is the widest. If you're talking to 100 people and we're signing up 2 people, and we're asking a reference, what is for the bottom 2? What about the 98? It is possible those 90 out of the 98, 90 will say no, but 8 may say yes. So this could be one behavior that you want to create this habit in your team to always ask for references, always be prospecting, always be qualifying, so that you get the right kind of leads into your funnel and not the wrong kind of leads, right? So these are certain behaviors that you bring into your team members. So this is one way in which you can improve on your sales funnel by seeing that are you covering all the 3 B, A, and T elements within your sales funnel. So let's look at solution now, right? At the solution stage, again, similarly, we are very good at teaching our sales teams to get the pricing right, to be focused on the solution, and to do a lot more scoping, etc. But what is the attitude we need over there? We need people who are confident when they are giving a solution or discussing a solution with a client. That's the attitude that is there. If that is missing, even with the best product, the customer is not going to be convinced about it. We need people to understand the customer, to understand their challenges, and not just focus on selling the product. We need them to, and how do you do that? By active listening, by having a behavior of constantly, clearly listening to the customers, by developing probing skills, by not just taking things at the face value, right? Similarly for nurture, and then similarly for closing the deals. So while I've seen that a majority of organizations, they report that they have a sales process defined, there is a larger majority of sales people who report they're not using it because they don't understand why I should be doing this or how I should be doing it. So the BAT model is a good test for you to go back and check on your sales process and see if there is an alignment, if there are any missing elements here, and make those corrections for yourself. Okay, now let's look at one more place where you can actually look at sales leadership. On your screen are various sales matrices. Which of these matrices have not been considered by your sales leaders? Anybody here? You can also use a chat function if you don't want to, talk about it. Anybody? Any of these matrices which have not been considered by your sales leaders? I often find that the matrices which is missing are the ones which have a higher element of behavior in it. So customer satisfaction scores, net promoter scores, referral rates. These are 2-3 things which I've noticed that a lot of sales heads, I would say, if they're not yet doing this, they're not yet a leader. They actually don't give enough of importance over here, because these are more related to behavior. These are more related to the attitude of the salesperson. There's another way to also look at the sales matrices. Let's just take the lead generation rate, the rate at which we generate leads in a particular period of time. Now, if you have a low lead generation rate, then what do? We try and see if we spend more money on marketing. We check on the salesperson and see how many leads are, how many people are they, how many meetings they have, how many phone calls they are doing, where the lead source is coming from, etc., etc. All of these are techniques. But at the same metric, if it is not working for your organization, if you use the BAT model and see that what is the attitude of the sales team at that time when they are generating the leads, what is happening when the leads are coming in, how are they being addressed, what is the behavior which leads to a lead generation rate. These, if you start looking at those elements also, that will help you improve on your sales metrics rather than only looking at the techniques of it. Okay, so now let's get on to, and this can be applied to any sales metrics. I've just given you some examples over here. Now, while we're talking about sales metrics, there is a very common situation that I see with many organizations who implement sales matrices for the first time. The first challenge is that they don't have the data to be able to arrive at those matrices. So they put in those systems so that in which all the salespeople, all the various stakeholders are adding that data into the system. But this data alone is not enough for them to make decisions. Remember, one of the things we spoke about was data-based decision making. And so what is required is to for the team to be able to not only put in the data, but to also be able to analyze the data, to analyze that what is the data telling, what how do I analyze. And this is very interesting. I'll give you an example. um, let's just say that there's an organization who realized that 80% of their clients who said yes, or sorry, 80% of the leads that they were able to convert, okay, were belonged to the, let's say, the SME segment. Okay, so first of all, there is a data that there is how many customers how many leads have been converted. Second portion is then to do the analysis. Okay, so how many of these come in from different customer segments? And we said, okay, 80% of it is coming from SMEs. So then what else can you do with that? How else can you analyze? So what kind of SMEs? Which salesperson has gone over there? Which geography has this higher conversion rates? Which product or service have they used? Which marketing asset was used to get those leads in? What was the sales cycle? What was the pricing model? What was the conversation that the customer and the what was the pain area the customer came with? Now these are all different ways in which you can analyze the data. And I find that quite often than not, this job is only done by the sales manager or the sales head and not by the sales team. And this is something that we definitely need to make sure that we empower our sales teams to be able to do this for their own data. Once you've got those analysis done, then what are the insights do you draw out from that? If 80% of my sales leads are getting converted from SMEs, does it mean that I focus only on the SME segment? Or should I, or does it mean that the SME segment has a particular challenge for which my product is doing much more better than for any other customer segments, right? So what kind of insights are you able to draw? Quite often, again, these insights are spoon-fed to a sales team by a sales manager, because and because of which the sales teams don't understand the power or the value of that insight, and many times, quite often than not, they ignore that insight. Okay, and after they've got all of these, is then of course, once you've got the insight, if they don't act on it, if they ignore it, then there is no value. You might as well go back to the lowest common factor of just the data part. So the actions from those insights is what actually matters. The business benefits only comes as we move towards up the ladder. So this is something which, again, if you see the analysis, the insights, and the actions are all part of the attributes which is related to behavior and attitude, right? And data is just the technique. So we need sales managers to not only we need sales head to not only understand that there is this journey that we need to go through with our data, and not only for self, but also coach and mentor the team. And let me tell you, when it comes to these stages of analysis, insights, and actions, it actually takes a longer time. It takes a longer time to develop that behavior, to develop that attitude towards data. And I've seen this. We can do a sales process, set up a sales process, train everybody in a week's time, but it takes months to make sure that everybody starts utilizing that data. Tools, platforms like HCRM give you a plethora of reports, but how do you use that reports? That has to be a skill. That has to be an element which has to be driven by the salespeople or the sales leader for the sales. So that's another model that I would like you to have a think about. Where else can we use the distinction between a sales manager and a sales leader? And that is on the sales reviews. So let's take an example. And the sales reviews are one of the most difficult discussions and that a sales team goes through. And I don't think there's any sales executive or sales person who will be who looks forward to a sales review at all. Why is that happening? So let's say the case of an opposite situation. Let's say that there is a sales review happening and the salesperson has not met his or her target. So what happens when a manager, when we do the sales review from a manager's perspective? Okay, they're typically asking questions like how much of the target has been achieved, what is the gap, what went wrong, which accounts did we lose, what happened in each account, did you manage it, did somebody else manage it? So if you see, most of these are looking at the past and their focus is always on what has not been achieved. But let's see how can the same review actually be done when you're using a leadership mindset. So what kind of questions can you ask in the same thing? What did you accomplish? What did you learn? How can you turn this around and have better results next time? So if you see, they're not ignoring that the targets have not been met. Okay, but the way they are addressing that and working on it, using this as an opportunity to coach, motivate, guide, advise the salesperson is completely different from what we do as when we're doing only sales management. There's some very powerful questions over here. And if you see, each of those questions are always looking into the future. And they're covering aspects of behavior, like what will you give to make up room for your goals? They're also covering, some questions are also covering attitude. If you changed your belief about this particular thing, what would be possible? So if you see that practically, sales leadership is not just a theory. It is something that you can apply at different parts of your sales function. Whether it is your sales reviews, whether it is your sales processes, whether it is the way you are training your team to be more self-sufficient, to be more self-thinking machines. So since we've spoken so much about sales leadership, I thought maybe I could also leave you with one more powerful model for sales coaching for top performance. Okay, and this will take a long time to cover, but I'm just putting this together so that you see the summary of how sales coaching empowers sales leaders and turn to achieve sales leadership. So on your screen we have a pie chart. These are the different roles that a sales head or a sales leader plays, and I've got about 10 of them over here. And if you see, they're equally divided into, some of them are coaching roles and some of them are managing roles. The coaching roles are the one which focus on motivation, focus, execution, advising, and developing the teams. The management is the one focusing on performance, pipeline management, forecast management, managing accountabilities, territory management, and even maybe talent management. So the reality is that a sales leader is not only doing the leadership, the coaching piece of it, right? He or she also needs to do the he also needs to do the management part of the sales. But we're talking about beyond sales management, and that's the right side of the pie over here. So while these are very clear to all of us, and I'm sure none of this is new to you, what I would like to add is two more layers. The next layer is the conversation layer. And these conversation layers are the sales coaching conversations that you have with your team. And these are different conversations that take place at different time. And also, some of them could be one-to-one, some of them could be small groups, some of them will be the bigger team. But you will notice that the strongest, the most powerful conversations what you have is on a one-to-one basis. And what kind of conversations can you have? You can have conversations which are ad hoc, quick check-ins, right? Hi, how's the day? How's the project? How's it going? how was the meeting, how's the customer, just a quick check-ins, or a more structured conversation around, let's talk about performance management. I know both of you, all of you will be thinking performance management conversations is something which is most we are all very aware of. But unfortunately, the performance management conversation happens maybe once, twice a year. For the best organizations, 4 times a year, every quarter once, right? And that is good, but the focus there is on performance. But the sales people, there is a lot more other needs that they have, right? And this is where the different conversations can come in. Project setup conversations, wrap up conversations, development conversations on how do we empower you, where are you stuck with, what are you struggling with, right? So there are different type of conversations that you can have. And the last layer that I would like to add is what we call the rhythms. What is a rhythms? It is like a process. It's very similar to your behavior, right? It is a series of steps that you do on a regular interval. It's a rhythm, like your music rhythm. You have to repeat them on an ongoing basis for you to make music. You have to have a variety of coaching conversations with each of your salesperson to actually make sales leadership alive in your organization. So this rhythms is important. It's a very there's a number out there that says that every sales leader needs to spend at least 5 hours per week with his or her sales team members. And I don't know if it's really possible or not, but that number should give you some kind of a ballpark. Is that the kind of time I'm spending with my sales teams? If I am not, what am I missing out? What kind of conversation am I not happening? Where am I not supporting? Which roles am I not playing? This is this is some food for thought that I'm leaving you all with. So with that, quickly just sharing a quote from the Forbes magazine, which says that coaching is, of course, one of the most important elements of sales leadership. And the best sales leaders understand that sales is a strategy, and strategy cannot be taught, it can only be coached. So with that, I'm ending my session. I know it's been quite quick one. I'm quite good on time, not bad. So before I leave, I would like to see if I could get some inputs from all of you all about anything new that you have picked up today, or any thoughts that have been triggered with this session today. I'll leave the floor open to you all.
Basically, the last slide that you spoke about rhythms, that is very strong in terms of resonating with today's environment in the entire sales cycle, or whatever you call, across the globe and across industries, because one of the people in the entire team is kind of spends more time with the leader or the manager over drinks or whatever you say, and then he is the one who becomes the pet of him. And that's how teams are built, and they go along wherever they go. And this is becoming a trend now, which is wrong actually. The idea of sharing and kind of coming together is that weekend off day. You spend your time with your team and then make sure that they all gel together. But then the easier way is going every day on a drink in the evening before going home with that one person who has become your pet now. And that is where the things go wrong again.
I agree. So what you're saying, Samirji, also happens when, sometimes the rhythm one is, of course, you're spending time with one person more than the other people. Okay. The other thing also happens is that there is the frequency is very erratic.
Absolutely.
Okay? Some weeks, some days you're spending so much of time with your team. Some days you're not. Some meetings which have been scheduled, there's a calendar that you have drawn out. That these are the meetings that we are going to be having. These are the interventions I'm going to have with my team, and then we don't follow it up with that, right? And it's okay. It happens once in a while. It happens when a customer comes as a priority, but there's always a priority. And if your team is not a priority, there's no rhythm in the way in which you're interacting and having conversations with your team, then the whole pyramid just collapses.
True.
Thank you for sharing that.
True. In fact,
Uh,
if you now remember the news that comes in, any one person in the CXO level leaving, we know for sure what's going to come next because we
Yes.
know who's his man. So that's so predictive nowadays that you are actually losing out on a big opportunity of being in the organization and developing yourself. What you do is you develop a relationship with that person and then carry along with him, or you go along with him wherever you go. So
Absolutely. So, thank you so much, Samir ji. I'm happy that you were there because everybody else has been very, very quiet. I don't know whether this was something which is already familiar. They all know that, or maybe it's not important. I don't know which one is it. But I'm glad that you were here, Samir ji, for helping me in today's conversation.
I'm so glad I am there because I learned so many things from you today. So many insights that we have been doing it, but missing it out as to why we do it and what makes you successful and what makes somebody else a little less successful is all about that behavior. Attitude is what you carry with you no matter where you go. Behavior is what you have in control and you can change it whenever you want, however you want to. And that one aspect itself is very great in terms of today's insight. I think I'm going to carry it along with me for my team to probably for me to become a sales leader from a sales
Thank
manager.
you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Kadambari, back to you.
Yes. So anybody else in the audience who has any questions for Ms. Neetu ji, please you may ask away. You may unmute yourself or you may put your questions in the chat box. Let us see your questions in the chat box.
So I think it's time for us to wrap this, Kadambari.
Okay, then what an insightful webinar it was, I must say. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much to all the audience who are present. Do you have any feedback for us? Let us know by what you think, filling a Google form shared in the chat box. Once again, thank you everyone for attending this webinar. Thank you, Neetu ma'am. I can't wait to see you all at our next webinar. And remember, becoming an exceptional sales leader is an ongoing process of growth, adaptation, and continuous learning. So by embodying the qualities we have discussed and nurturing your team's potential, you can lead team to unprecedented heights of success in the competitive world of sales. So thank you everyone. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and lead with a purpose.
And you never lose out your enthusiasm.
Yes, absolutely, Kadambari. It's a pleasure to hear you today.
Thank you.
Excellent enthusiasm. Superb energy. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.